Perfectionism is perhaps a bit of a ubiquitous topic, but for good reason. I think almost everyone I meet, especially in a place like New York, suffers from it in some capacity. And funnily enough, I would say I didn't self recognize myself as a perfectionist until I was in my mid-20s because, and one of my dearest friends finds this hilarious, because as I reflect on it, the rationale was I didn't think that what I was performing or doing was good enough to be called perfectionist. Like I was so perfectionistic actually that I didn't think that I was working hard enough to even consider myself a perfectionist. And then I sort of had a realization where I was actually self-sabotaging and not going out for certain opportunities creatively, professionally, whatever, because I didn't feel ready. I mean, yes, people have been bringing it to my attention for years, but I still issue up. I'm not a perfectionist. No, like, have you seen me? Like, there were 1,000 things wrong with that thing. And I just couldn't conceive that I was being perfectionistic in any way because I didn't think that I was working even 50% of what a perfectionist would be working. And like that kind of says it all about the sickness of perfectionism. But I used to always joke when I would be like in interview settings, if I was interviewing someone for a position, or I always found it dubious, especially coming from the position that I was coming from, if someone would describe themselves as a perfectionist, because no actual perfectionist would be like, I'm a perfectionist, because I know that we all do that today as kind of recovering perfectionists, myself included. But to do it in a really earnest way, where like, I'm a perfectionist. No perfectionist thinks that they're ever achieving perfection, so they don't call themselves a perfectionist. Like it was always like if someone said it in an interview, I'm like huge demerit. I don't know if there's other people out there like me, maybe don't say that in an interview. But I digress. But it is, such a spiritual and creative affliction. Like why it's a self-denial of our own inherent worth, of there being beauty in just the mess of everything. And like the mess of everything, whether it's a big mess or just a tiny little wabi-sabi imperfection, is actually a far more authentic and truthful expression of life. And it's, if art is to mirror life, like it's not only inherently boring to be perfect, because it perfection signifies like the end of the road. There is nowhere to go. There's no evolution that can happen. There's no like transformation that can occur. So the story is over. Next. And the things that we most often glom onto or that resonate with us about a particular singer, a dancer, an actor, are usually the so-called things that are non-kosher or a little bit imperfect. I don't even like to think of like there's a right or a wrong way to sing anymore. If it's sustainable, healthy, and it feels good in the singer's body, I'm increasingly inclined to say yes to that. And if it moves you or it doesn't move you, like as in the public, then that's a different question. But you should ultimately sing for yourself. And then what resonates will resonate as is supposed to resonate in the world. Because, there's nothing in this world or this lifetime that is meant for you that, won't find its way to you. If you are surrendered to that kind of idea that the cosmic calculus is orchestrating and that you don't have to overly manipulate, but just be open to sensing where the flow in life is ever taking you. And so, yeah, like someone like Maria Callas, by a lot of like kind of modern aesthetic standards, would not always be considered to be perfectly kosher in certain ways, but there's just something so compelling about her singing and how she sang, and like the vast variety of what she could sing and sing well. And yes, like there were different pockets and periods in her career that had different colors or different levels of expressiveness or this or that, like any artist. We love people for their foibles. That's what also makes them interesting within a greater context of prowess and competency. And I mean, this is actually on a technical front what is so disheartening about the over amplification of voices, particularly in musical theater and sometimes even in classical music. It's one thing in a pop setting because they're singing in a style where it's not intended to be heard over vast spaces. So you need the amplification just to be heard. And we're going more for the emotion or a different kind of expressiveness, it's the words or the dancing or the spectacle of it all. But, even musical theater, it's not to say that all amplification is bad, but in many ways it limits the creative expression. You have some guy in the sound booth turning up or down your sound. I mean, really, like, come on, that's the whole point of technique, is to be able to have the technical expression to shape the sound and the sound level as you see fit, or as, in tandem with the conductor. But the other thing is like the amplification and the microphones actually take out a lot of the natural overtones and like a lot of the natural resonance in the voice that can make it interesting and compelling. And like for me, like that's why I go to the theater or the ballet or the opera or anything with live performance, is to encounter like the visceral beingness of some great creator on stage expressing who they are via the container of their art. And so, if everything is over amplified beyond what is just necessary to make it audible at the back of the hall, we really lose the essence of who these people are. We lose the idiosyncrasies that are expressing the depths of their humanity and what they have uniquely to say in this world, not only about the character, but on a much more meta level about themselves. So, how did I get there from this idea of perfectionism? I mean, it's just essentially we should be advocating for the quirks and the idiosyncrasies that make us who we are. And the world will judge as the world will judge. But I've always said I'd far rather, or I'd much rather be weird than normal. Because what is normal? It's some arbitrary standard that we hide behind. Perfect is a fantasy. And I think perfect really becomes an affliction, not only in ourselves and limiting ourselves, but it also becomes a block from connecting to other people, because we have this idea that there is some perfect friend or perfect lover or perfect child, and they're going to show up in this very particular way that we have in our mind as a fantasy. And yet, humans are humans. Like the best friend that you could ever ask for is still going to let you down in some way. The best boss is still going to have a day when they're a little cranky. That, the truthful acceptance of any human, as they are authentically expressing, is the good and the bad. And I think if we can start to be less perfectionistic with ourselves, and we start to be less exacting of others in life, and we actually can celebrate all of the beauty, quirks, idiosyncrasies, and hilarity that is expressed by whomever we encounter.